Smoke rose against the sky like a funeral pyre for gods. Çekim saw it first, 3 leagues out, where the desert met cultivated land. A black column twisting skyward, too thick for cook fires, too vast for accident. His hand went to his Kilesia's hilt without thought, dark eyes narrowing to slits. Conan followed his gaze. The Cimmerian's jaw clenched, volcanic eyes reading what the smoke wrote in a language older than speech. Their eyes met. No words needed. Both men had seen this before. The signature of catastrophe, written in ash and ruin. "Ride!" Çekim's voice cracked like a whip. The column surged forward. Yasmela drove her heels into her mount's flanks without hesitation, royal dignity forgotten. She'd smelled that smoke before, in nightmares she couldn't name. Now it filled her nostrils with the stench of prophecy fulfilled. The horses thundered across packed earth, then irrigated fields where grain lay trampled and burning. Closer. The smoke thickened, carrying something worse than wood fire. The sweet, sick reek of seared flesh. The chemical bite of stone melted to glass. Then the outer walls appeared through the haze, or what remained of them. Khauran's proud limestone ramparts. Those barriers that had turned back Stygian hordes and desert raiders for 300 years, stood in jagged ruin. Not crumbled, not breached by ram or siege tower, melted. Great sections had run like wax, frozen mid-flow in grotesque cascades of fused stone. Bodies yell embedded in the cooled rock, their final screams preserved in calcium and horror. The gates hung twisted on hinges of slag. Beyond them, the city. Gods of Cimmeria. Conan had sacked cities, had walked through the aftermath of massacre and left his own share of corpses behind. But this, Khauran had been scoured. Buildings stood as blackened skeletons, their white stones scorched to charcoal in temperatures that shouldn't exist outside a smith's forge. The streets, those broad avenues where merchants had hawked wares that morning, ran with rivers of cooled glass, formed from sand and stone, melted together in an instant of impossible heat. Bodies everywhere, not merely dead, vitrified, crystallized mid-flight, turned to statues of smoking mineral. A mother clutching a child, both frozen in obsidian. A god with sword raised, now a sculpture of burnt bone and fused armor. The palace, Kashtrim's seat of wisdom and power, stood as a gutted shell. Its gardens were ash. Its fountains held molten lead where water once flowed. The ivory throne, visible through the collapsed wall, sat untouched. A mocking monument surrounded by annihilation. Yasmila's horse reared, screaming. The princess hit the ground hard, scrambled to her feet, and ran.
Father! Father!
Her voice echoed through the necropolis that had been her home. Çekim dismounted with predatory grace, eyes scanning the devastation with the cold assessment of a man reading a battlefield. His hand remained on his Kalija's curved grip. "Not demons," he said. "Not sorcery as men practice it." Conan stood in his stirrups, the blade of Dumah suddenly ice-cold against his back. The weapon knew what had happened here, recognized the signature the way a wolf knows another predator's scent. Then what? His voice was granite scraped on granite. Çekim's eyes fixed on something in the distance. The palace's highest tower, or what remained of it. The stone there didn't just burn. It had been erased, leaving a perfect spherical void where reality itself seemed thin, like looking through smoke glass at something that shouldn't exist. Divine fire. The words fell like stones into a well with no bottom. This is what happens when something from beyond the veil manifests completely. Not possession, not summoning. He turned to Conan, and his young face held the weight of 1,000 lifetimes. Arrival. In the ruins, Yasmila's screams had gone silent. Yasmila stood with the smoke-blackened remnant of Khauran's garrison. 20 men out of thousands. Their eyes were hollow. They had watched their world die under fire from a clear sky. She was the last daughter of Kashtrim's line, last keeper of ages of guardianship. The weight of it pressed like a mountain of ash. Çekim lifted his hand and the column halted where stone gave to scorched earth. His dark gaze raked the ruins with a hunter's calm. No man goes in. A soldier stepped forward, the cloth around his face streaked with ash and dust. He spat into the scorched earth. "My kin are in there. What's left? What's left can wait," said Çekim, his voice iron-sure, the tone of one who had weighed such dooms in 100 dying realms. Something broods in those streets. It would have us scatter and blunder blind with grief. His palm rested on the curve of his killage. We give it nothing. We hold the edge and watch. The soldier's hand fell to his sword. You'd have us sit while we do not march into a snare set by what unmade your city in heartbeats. Çekim's look pinned him. No wrath, no pity. Only fact, hard as steel. The board is set. The cast is made. We wait till the foe shows its hand. Yasmela turned from the man's spent fury and found the Cimmerian. Conan stood apart, jaw locked, eyes like banked volcano fire upon the ruin. His right hand gripped the blade of Dumah until the leather smoked beneath his fingers. No figure of speech. Real smoke curled between scorched flesh and hilt. The stench of char met the wind.
Conan,
Yasmela began. Don't. The word cracked like a stone split with an axe. Heat mounted. Fire and frost sang, no longer in concord, but in rebuke. The blade knew. It tasted the taint in its wielder's heart, the hot, personal wrath that had once ruined Dumah. Conan's lips skinned from his teeth. You feel my burn, blade. You scorch my hand to teach me what? That I wrought this, that each corpse in those streets bears my name. The leather flamed. He did not lose his grip. Çekim came in 3 pantherish strides and set a hand on Conan's wrist, not to drag, but to anchor. The touch of one who had stood at that brink. Hold your intent steady, he said, voice flat with old wisdom. The blade heeds neither guilt nor virtue. Private spite, vengeance masked as justice, poisons what you carry. Then what correction of the cosmos? Not yours. Çekim's fingers tightened. The instant your wrath becomes your own, the blade turns. It always has. His eyes did not waver. Hear how the last elemental learned it. At last Conan let go. The weapon rang on stone. The leather still smoldered. His palm bore the brand, scars set in the very pattern of the grip, as certain as a seal. Çekim knelt beside it. His tone went low, as men speak of old oaths. Millennia gone, before your tribes had names. A prince of the Jinn, Boreshnia Bibarad. Dumah was his name. Fire-wrought, deathless as the hills. He carried the blade longer than men have drawn breath. His fingers traced signs in the air above the steel. When Acheron's purple towers ruled, their magi sought to yoke the elements. Earth, air, water, fire. They would chain gods. The Jinn withstood them. Acheron answered with ruin. Not conquered, erased. Their cries still fret the spaces between worlds. The branded hand knotted at Conan's side. For ages Dumah struck true. When chaos swelled, he broke it. When order curdled to tyranny, he shattered it. Çekim raised his gaze. He was perfect. For 3,000 years, he was perfect. What broke him? Conan's voice scraped like gravel. He watched his people burn too long. Çekim rose. At the temple of the serpent crown, mid-stroke against Zoth Malan, the sorcerer laughed and told him his sister, the last Jinn princess, was bound into the very stones. Each step Dumah took ground her soul to feed the wards. She had known it for centuries. She had screamed in the dark. Silence fell like a tomb lid. His fury kindled, not cold and true, but personal. Çekim's words thinned to a knife edge. The blade felt the rot. It turned in his hand. Fire that should have unmade the mage devoured its master. The blade killed him, Conan said. The blade corrected him, Çekim returned. It cares nothing for noble pleas. Cross that line, and you are the imbalance. Conan stared at the brand seared into his flesh. Millennia of perfection, he murmured, undone in a heartbeat of rage. Aye. No comfort lay in Çekim's tone. That is the burden you take, not the might, but the trial. Each breath with that steel is a step between champion and warning. It burns you now, he said. It feels your rage. That road is Dumah's, and it ends in flame. Conan lifted the blade with his left hand. It did not welcome. It did not deny. It waited. Then how? The word words were raw. How do I bear it and not become what it hunts? A shadow of old weariness crossed Çekim's face, the look of a man who had answered this on more fields than he could name. You do not wield for yourself, not for revenge, not for love, not for your own rule of right. His eyes were iron. You wield because the world lists awry, and the blade is the straightening. You are only its shape. That's no answer. No, said Çekim, but it's the only one that leaves you living. He looked to the ruins, where something vast moved in smoke, or seemed to. And we need you whole, Cimmerian. Whatever smote this city still lingers. It waits. It wagers you'll break, as Dumah broke. Conan slung the blade across his back. It settled like a doom accepted. Then I'll disappoint it. See that you do. They kindled no fires. They made no sound. 20 soldiers, 1 princess, 1 traveler, 1 Cimmerian. They waited in the gathering dark for what haunted Khauran's corpse. The blade upon Conan's back hummed its old hymn. Fire and frost, correction and unmaking, biding to learn whether this hand would prove wiser than the last, or whether the tale would be written again in ash and cosmic flame. But there are forces older than intention, currents that move beneath the surface of what men call fate. Çekim had not wandered to this place by chance, nor been summoned by any earthly power. He was caught, snared in the great weave that binds world to world, age to age. The threads men cannot see had pulled taut across dimensions, and where they crossed, he stood. The traveler knew, had always known. Destiny is not a path. It is a noose that tightens with each struggle against it. Conan bore the blade. Yasmela bore her bloodline's doom. The 20 bore their dead city's weight. And Çekim bore the knowledge that all of it, every death, every choice, every moment leading here, was the slow closing of a trap set before empires had names. Time itself held its breath. The night leaned close. Something in the ruins stirred.